Hey, what's up? It's your boy Big Doula here on Fantasy Week. Now today we're going to talk about the top 5 fantasy races of all time. Okay, coming in at number 5 is the Werewolf. Usually doesn't stand alone. It's usually the enemy or the protector or somehow related to the vampire. In recent history, we've seen the rise of LoreKings and the use of them in video games like Skyrim. I feel like the werewolf has come back a little bit, but is still always playing second fiddle to the vampire. But nonetheless, in popular culture, I think everybody knows what the werewolf is. Okay, coming in at number 4 are those little lovable creatures called dwarves. Dwarves are a mainstay in almost every piece of fantasy fiction, whether it's video games, movies, comics. The dwarf is always an ally, mostly a male. You rarely ever see female dwarves. Mostly a male character with the protagonist helping them out on his trip. They usually have a big, broad battle axe. The culture is always a building culture. The number 3 fantasy race of all time is the orc. The orc is always the enemy. There's never a good orc. Like maybe you find like maybe once or twice like out there somewhere in the ether. But usually the orc is the main enemy or part of the main enemy force coming after the protagonist or the good guys or the kingdom or whatever. You know, they're always pillaging and burning and doing all those crazy things. So coming in at number 3, wonderful fantasy creature, the orc. Okay, coming in at number 2 on the top 5 fantasy creatures of all time are the vampires. Vampires stole our heart from the first inception. They are somewhat like the emos of the fantasy world. They, you know, have this dichotomy between the person they were before the person they were bitten, and now because they have to suck blood, they have to do things they probably wouldn't do before they're bitten, or they're like worse than they were before. They can be good, they can be bad. In recent history, some, you know, glitter when the sun hits them instead of dying. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on with vampires lately, but still they hold a solid place at number 2 in the lexicon of fantasy races. All right, the top fantasy race of all time is the elf. Now, we always see the elves. Elves are everywhere. There's the good elves, there's bad elves, there's tree elves, there's wood elves, there's all types of elves. The elves are overwhelmingly helping the protagonist in whatever he or she is doing. They are usually tall, long, slender, have bow and arrows, sometimes with swords, but never really with heavy armor. And they just capture our imagination. They are essential in fantasy writing, essential in fantasy movies, essential in fantasy TV, and you know you're always going to get a good show when you have an elf. So it's your boy Big Doula signing off. Like, subscribe, watch, comment. To you, the top 5 video game fantasy franchises / series. Okay, coming in at number 5 is Dragon Age by